What made Russia turn its back on China and side with the Philippines instead? It's not a plot twist from a Tom Clancy novel, it's real life. And if you're confused, you're not alone. Because somewhere between Putin's poker face and China's silent stare, the Philippines, yes, that tiny storm-battered archipelago, just got pulled into a geopolitical love triangle nobody saw coming. Look, you're not naive. You've lived through Cold Wars, regime changes, black and white TVs, and when gasoline was under $1. You've seen world powers play musical chairs for decades, and let's be honest, the music's always the same. Money, power, and control. So when headlines start whispering Russia might be pivoting toward the Philippines, you don't blink. But deep down, something feels off, doesn't it? Because if history has taught us anything, it's that nothing in global politics happens out of charity. So why now? Why them? Why is Moscow eyeing Manila like a long-lost investment rather than Beijing, their supposed ideological BFF? Let's start with what most people forget. Russia and China aren't actually best friends. They're more like neighbors who borrow sugar, but also spy on each other's backyards. Sure, they nod at each other at summits. Smile for the camera. But behind the curtains? It's all chess. And in chess, pawns matter, especially when they're sitting smack dab in the middle of the South China Sea. Enter the Philippines, a pawn with unexpected leverage. A country that's been poked, pulled, and pressured by larger powers for centuries. First the Spanish, then the Americans, and now, everyone else. But Russia sees something different. Not a colony. Not a charity case. A strategic gateway. Let's be blunt, Russia's economy is limping. Sanction-choked, oil-dependent, and desperate for trade routes that don't come with Western handcuffs. And guess who has deep water ports, access to Pacific corridors, and a diplomatic middle ground between East and West? Yup. The Philippines. It's like discovering a dusty old coin under your couch. You ignored it for years, but suddenly, it might just buy you lunch. Russia isn't helping the Philippines. It's hedging its bets. Because while China plays bulldozer in the West Philippine Sea, Russia's playing violin. Slow, sweet, and strategic. This isn't just about trade. It's about tanks and treaties. Russia's been dangling defense deals in front of Manila like candy in front of a starving kid. Fighter jets, surveillance systems, joint patrols, not because they care about Filipino sovereignty, but because proximity to China's underbelly is priceless. And here's the kicker, China knows it. But calling Russia out would expose their own desperation. So instead, China watches silently, while Russia drapes its arm over the Philippines like a jealous ex pretending to move on. We're not watching diplomacy. We're watching a power triangle where no one's in love, but everyone's armed. So what's really happening here? Simple. Russia doesn't need the Philippines, it needs leverage. And the Philippines? They're tired of being bullied by one superpower, so they're flirting with another. This isn't protection. It's positioning. In this global poker game, Manila just went from a disposable card to a wild one. And Russia? They're betting on chaos, not loyalty. Because in geopolitics, just like in life, people don't protect what they love. They protect what they can't afford to lose. Now here's the question nobody's asking. What happens when China realizes the Philippines isn't just straying, it's switching sides? Drop a 1 in the comment if you're following. Have you ever noticed how some people only show up when you're suddenly useful? Not when you're broken. Not when you're desperate. But the moment you've got something they want, a resource, a connection, a position, they're calling you brother like you grew up in the same house. That's what this feels like. Because Russia, yes Russia, the same country neck deep in sanctions and international side-eyes, is suddenly playing protector to the Philippines. And not China. Not its usual poker buddy at the we hate the West table. No, Moscow's eyeing Manila like a forgotten wine that aged better than expected. Let's not pretend this is charity. Russia doesn't do charity. It does strategy with a smirk. And before anyone starts preaching about new alliances, let's be real, Russia and China aren't married. They're the kind of couple that smiles in public and then sleeps in separate rooms. Sure, they high-five at BRICS meetings and toast to anti-West slogans. But beneath the surface? It's all cold calculation and thinly veiled distrust. China wants dominance. Russia wants survival. And the Philippines? It's not a love interest, it's leverage. Because if you zoom out, really zoom out, this isn't about who likes who. It's about who's willing to play the long game with a country floating in a sea full of disputed territory, US military agreements, untapped energy reserves, and a government tired of playing doormat. Russia isn't protecting the Philippines. It's parking influence in China's front yard, just close enough to provoke, not close enough to confess. And let's not ignore the irony. While China builds artificial islands to mark its turf, Russia's trying to build actual relationships. Cold, transactional ones, but relationships nonetheless. It's diplomacy with a screwdriver and a fake smile. The Philippines knows it's being courted for a reason. You don't suddenly get invited to the geopolitical table because you're charming. You get invited because your location screams valuable, and your past screams willing to pivot. So why not China? Because China's already claimed its seat at the table. Russia doesn't want to sit next to the bully, it wants to outmaneuver him. And the Philippines? That's the wild card. The one with just enough instability, just enough resentment, and just enough global sympathy to make everyone nervous. This isn't alliance. It's advantage. And while the West watches and China seethes, Russia slides its chair a little closer to Manila. Not to defend it, but to remind the world it still knows how to play the game, and this time, the board just shifted. Now ask yourself, what happens when the wild card realizes it's the most powerful piece on the board? Don't blink. The next move is going to be loud. You ever have an old friend start hanging out with people who used to be your enemies? You watch from a distance, drink in hand, thinking, that's new. But deep down, you already know what it means. They're done waiting on you. That's what America's watching right now. Because for decades, the Philippines was in the US orbit, loyal, predictable, sometimes even too obedient. We were the mainstay. The reliable uncle at every family barbecue. But now, the Philippines is showing up in Russian colors, and China's not even mad, it's confused. Because Moscow? Really? Let that sink in. Russia, the Cold War chessmaster turned international pariah, is suddenly the one tossing security deals and sweet talk to Manila. And Manila? It's not swiping left. This isn't a new bromance. It's a breakup, with benefits. And it hurts more because deep down, America thought this was a forever kind of thing. Military bases, World War II nostalgia, mutual defense treaties, all that Cold War baggage packed tight into a neat alliance. But the world doesn't run on loyalty. It runs on leverage. Here's the sting, the Philippines is pivoting. Away from America. Not out of hatred, but survival. You don't stay in one orbit when the gravity shifts. And right now, it's shifting hard. China's got the muscle. Russia's got the desperation. And the Philippines? They've got options. Which is more than they've had in decades. So why is Russia suddenly playing protector? Because even in isolation, Moscow knows a power vacuum when it sees one. The US blinked. China overreached. And Russia? It saw a lane. And in geopolitics, hesitation is an invitation. It's not about love, it's about leverage. The Philippines offers geography, sea lanes, and a backdoor to China's ego. And for Russia, that's a geopolitical cocktail too good to pass up. Now here's the twist. America didn't lose the Philippines. It assumed it never could. And assumptions? They rot alliances from the inside out. The US still sees itself as the main character, the reliable protagonist who everyone's rooting for. But that's the problem. The world isn't a 90s action movie anymore. Allies don't want heroes. They want options. Backup plans. Exit strategies. And if those come with rubles instead of dollars, so be it. Think about it. For years, America offered defense. China offered trade. But Russia? Russia is now offering attention. And sometimes attention, especially after being ignored, is all it takes to change the game. So while we're still running plays from the Cold War playbook, Russia's rewriting the rules. Quietly. Strategically. Right under our noses. And the Philippines? It's no longer the sidekick. It's becoming the wild card, the unpredictable, emotionally scarred, but increasingly powerful player with just enough sway to start shifting the global deck. Here's what nobody's saying out loud. The more the US takes its old allies for granted, the more space it gives to rivals to slip in. Not with tanks. But with deals. With promises. With the illusion of respect. So yeah, Russia playing savior might look strange. But it's not random. It's not stupid. It's calculated. Because in this new world, power doesn't always show up with a flag and a budget. Sometimes, it shows up late, wearing desperation like a designer suit. And if America doesn't pay attention, it's going to wake up one morning and realize, it's no longer the one being called when the storm rolls in. It's the one being talked about when the door closes. Now here's the real question. Is the US ready to win allies back, or just keep losing them to players it used to laugh at? The next move? It's not military. It's mental. What if I told you the Philippines, America's old war buddy, just handed Russia the keys to its backyard? Yeah, you heard that right. The same country where US soldiers spilled blood in World War II, where military bases once sprawled like mini Americas, is now swapping defense notes with Moscow, like it's no big deal. This isn't a diplomatic typo. It's a tectonic shift. One the US didn't see coming, or worse, ignored until it was too late. You ever ghosted someone? Then got jealous when they moved on? Because that's exactly what this feels like. And America? Yeah, it's the X watching from across the Pacific with mixed signals and Cold War baggage. Let's skip the polite analysis. The Philippines is tired of being a pawn. Tired of being the side dish in someone else's foreign policy buffet. It wants a seat at the table, even if that means pulling up a chair between two people America can't stand. And here's the jawbreaker. In 2025, a joint military exercise with Russia isn't symbolic. It's a warning shot. It's the Philippines saying, we're not in your orbit anymore, we're in the market. Think about it, 70 years of US loyalty. And all it took was one ignored typhoon, a few trade snubs, and a flashy Russian arms deal to flip the narrative. It's like watching your best friend join your rival's gym, while wearing your old uniform. You ever wonder why the countries America once protected are now shopping for new bodyguards? Here's your answer: because America showed up like a hero, and then left like a ghost. This isn't just about Southeast Asia. It's about the United States losing grip, not to enemies, but to neglect, to arrogance, to assuming old friendships don't expire. And now, the Philippines isn't breaking up. It's just rewriting its contact list. Subscribe, or miss the plot. What if I told you America's old sidekick just started seeing someone else, and didn't even send a breakup text? Yeah, the Philippines just cozied up to Russia and flirted with China, and Washington's acting like it didn't notice. But let's get real, this isn't a romantic betrayal. This is chess. And the US? It's been playing checkers in a poker room. See, everyone loves a good freedom versus tyranny headline. It's clean, easy, marketable. But the truth? It's murky, sticky, deliciously uncomfortable. Because this isn't a love story, it's a calculated move. One that smells less like betrayal, and more like survival. Let's not pretend this is about ideology. The Philippines isn't flipping sides like it's picking a new favorite K-pop group. This is about leverage. Because even besties keep secrets, especially when the rent's due, and the neighbor's offering free utilities. You ever notice how quiet America gets when its allies start shopping around? Like that friend who only texts when they need to move a couch, but goes ghost when you're drowning in bills. The Philippines got tired of being the emotional support country. You fight wars on our soil, then disappear when the typhoon hits? Cool. Let's see what Russia's offering. Ouch. And before the patriots start foaming at the mouth, calm down. This isn't treason. It's negotiation. Because being stuck in the US orbit means always spinning, and never steering. What's happening now? The Philippines is pulling up a chair at the high-stakes table, not to flip the board, but to finally place a bet. And while America is still holding onto Cold War baggage like emotional carry-ons, China and Russia are already redecorating the airport. But why would a longtime ally risk it all? Here's a stat you didn't see coming. China is now the Philippines' top trading partner. Russia just signed a defense deal to share intel and conduct naval drills. And the US? Still reviewing the paperwork. This isn't about choosing sides. It's about not being cornered anymore. It's messy. It's bold. And honestly, it's overdue. We love stories with heroes and villains. But what if this one's just a bunch of tired nations trying to stay afloat in a world where loyalty doesn't pay the bills? The Philippines isn't selling out. It's buying time. And if that makes America uncomfortable, maybe it should. What if the Philippines stopped choosing sides, and started being the side? Yep. The country everyone underestimated, the one America used to treat like a spare key and China treated like a construction site, just made a move neither saw coming. It's teaming up with Russia. Not just smiling across summits. Not just signing guest books. Actual military drills are now on the table. And here's the kicker, Russia sees more in the Philippines than China can offer. Let that marinate. See, most people still think geopolitics is about loyalty. Nah, it's about leverage. And every new friend? That's a new front. In this game, handshakes can be grenades, just waiting for someone to flinch. The US loves to act like a protective parent, but only shows up for the graduation photos. China brings gifts, then installs surveillance with the bow still on. Russia? Russia shows up like a bad ex, unpredictable, charming, and always looking for a rebound. And the Philippines? Tired of dating people who only remember your name when they need a favor. In 2024, Russia increased its arms exports to Southeast Asia by 42%, and the Philippines is suddenly on that list. Meanwhile, US military aid dropped 14%, and China's soft loans? Slower than your ex texting back. This isn't about becoming pro-Russia. It's about not being pro-doormat anymore. Let's be honest, the Philippines has always played sidekick in someone else's movie. But what if that sidekick stopped waiting for a script and started writing its own? This isn't about dancing with the devil. It's about learning to lead the damn orchestra. Because being neutral isn't weakness, it's strategy with swagger. But what's Russia really after? Oil? Territory? A warm beach vacation with a naval base on the side? Hold that thought, we'll get there. When America hesitates, Russia innovates. China builds roads. Russia builds bonds. Now tell me that won't spark a fire in the comments section. This shift? It's not random. It's rebellion with receipts. Because being everyone's fallback plan eventually makes you realize, maybe you're the prize. Bottom line? This isn't the Philippines breaking up with anyone. It's finally dating on its own terms. Strategic, shameless, and maybe a little savage. The world thought it was choosing between Team USA and Team China. But the Philippines? It just drafted a third team, and Russia's already warming up. Stick around. The next move might just flip the entire Pacific chessboard. Comment your take, if you're not too scared to say it out loud. What if I told you the Philippines isn't playing both sides? It's building a third one. Not US loyal. Not China curious. Something else entirely. A wild card. A backdoor. A plan B, for everyone else. See, people keep asking, who owns the Philippines now? Wrong question. The real question is, who needs the Philippines more than they're willing to admit? Let's be honest. Most of us grew up thinking geopolitics was just rich guys arguing over oil and shaking hands in overpriced suits. But this is different. This is smaller islands flipping global tables. This is history whispering while everyone's too busy doom-scrolling to hear it. Because while everyone argues over which superpower's in charge, they forget the little guy with 5 mutual defense treaties, a coastline China desperately wants, and bases America keeps circling like a clingy ex. You ever wonder why the smallest countries get the loudest attention in wartime? Yeah, lean in. The Philippines isn't choosing between the US and China. It's becoming the USB drive both forgot they left plugged in. Loaded with strategic access, military gateways, and ports that can turn tides, literally. Russia sees more in the Philippines than China ever offered. Why? Because every new friend is a new front. This isn't a love triangle. It's a hostage negotiation in karaoke form. And everyone's smiling through gritted teeth. Imagine being the coat check at the world's messiest party. Everyone hands you their jackets, but nobody remembers they left missiles in the pockets. And now, you're the one with leverage. People think the Philippines is stuck in the middle. But maybe, just maybe, it's the axis point. Where alliances pivot. Where silence holds more power than speeches. And where neutral doesn't mean weak, it means everyone's watching you. History rarely screams, it whispers. And right now, the Philippines is whispering things that echo in Pentagon walls. Drop a 1 if you're tracking this geopolitical glow-up. Because this isn't a love story. It's a calculated move. And it's only just begun. You ever feel like the Philippines is that kid everyone ignored in school, until they found out he holds the answers to everyone's final exam? Yeah. Suddenly, the US wants to reconnect, China's acting possessive, and now Russia's showing up like it's 1898 again. Roses in one hand, naval agreements in the other. Let's stop pretending this is about friendship. This is chess. The Philippines isn't neutral, it's necessary. Why? Geography. That sweet, salty triangle of chaos known as the South China Sea. It's not a sea anymore. It's a poker table, and the Philippines holds a wild card no one expected, until now. Here's the sting. Everyone thinks the Philippines is being played. But what if they're the one dealing the cards? This isn't naivety, it's strategy. And if you're still thinking of the Philippines as a small player, you're about a century late and a superpower short. Back in the late 1800s, guess who was sniffing around Manila Bay? Not just the Americans. The Russians. Yes, Russia. The Tsar's navy parked itself in Philippine waters like it was window shopping. Fast forward to today, and they're back. Different leaders. Same agenda. Moscow wants a foothold, and Manila? It's not saying yes. It's just not saying no. Why? Diversification. Energy deals. Military toys. Sanctions-proof partnerships. Because here's the part they don't teach in history class. When you've been colonized by half the planet, you stop trusting promises and start pricing options. And don't get it twisted, this isn't just about defense. It's economics. The Philippines imports nearly all its energy. That's not just risky, that's existential. So when Russia whispers discounted gas in your ear while everyone else is threatening embargoes, yeah, you listen. Carefully. ASEAN? Watching. Washington? Nervous. Beijing? Pissed. Because the Philippines is no longer the prize, it's the pivot. You ever wonder why everyone suddenly wants joint military drills here? Why the same countries that once bombed these islands now beg for access? It's not guilt. It's location. Choke points, deep water ports, access to Taiwan, the kind of geography that turns islands into insurance policies. But here's the kicker, it's not about picking sides. It's about building leverage. The Philippines isn't choosing a new master. It's forcing old empires to audition. And while everyone's obsessing over who's in control, the Philippines is busy rewriting the script. Quietly. Strategically. Historically. Like it always had to. Because when your past is a map of occupations, betrayals, and backroom deals, you don't play favorites. You play the long game. So go ahead. Call it fence sitting. But from where the Philippines is sitting, the fence is a throne. And the view? Global. Drop a fire in the comments if you're starting to see the game shift. Or a brain, if this made you rethink who's actually in charge. Because this ain't about East versus West anymore. It's about the middle waking up, and realizing it's the center of everything. You know that feeling when someone only texts you when they need something? Welcome to the Philippines inbox. And guess what? The sender list looks like a G20 summit. America's back. China's breathing down our neck. And now Russia? Russia's sliding into the DMs like it's 1896 again. Back when they first docked near Manila, not to say hi, but to remind everyone they were watching. This isn't a coincidence. It's geography. The Philippines sits like a pressure point in Southeast Asia, and everyone wants to press it. You ever wonder why global superpowers suddenly act like this island chain is the prom queen? Spoiler, it's not love. It's leverage. And Manila just became the most valuable pawn on the board. Here's the part that makes your gut twist. Most folks still think the Philippines is caught in the middle. Nah, it is the middle. That South China Sea tension? Those military exercises? That scramble for defense treaties? It's not because we're weak, it's because this land matters. The map just got real, and suddenly, we're not a footnote. We're the foot in the door. Now zoom in. Russia. The same country dodging sanctions like it's a sport is offering us energy deals and arms packages. But why now? Simple. They're locked out of the West, and Southeast Asia is the new lobby. And for a country like the Philippines that imports almost all of its energy, that's not just a lifeline, it's a strategy. Cheap gas, backup alliances, weapons not made in the West. It's the kind of offer you don't take unless you know exactly what you're doing. Think this is about loyalty? It's not. It's about survival. You don't play favorites in a world that's played you for 400 years. You play every side, until one plays itself. History says, stay loyal. Strategy says, stay useful. And right now, being useful to everyone means being owned by no one. So let's kill the fairy tale. This isn't a love story. It's a calculated move. A long play. A gambit. Because when the oceans get tense and the sky fills with jets, soft power becomes dead weight. And every handshake starts looking like an ultimatum. But Manila? Manila's smiling. Because it knows, this isn't chaos. It's control. And if you're just now paying attention, you're already behind. Drop a chess piece in the comments if you see the long game. Or petrol, if you know energy's the real weapon here. Subscribe to Insyd Report. We don't sell dreams. We decode reality. The kind of reality that doesn't make headlines, but changes everything.